people already had ink on their fingers
And they
did not vote.
Woo. Shocking words there from Dr. Miranda Wellington, PNP candidate in Southwest St. Elizabeth, a seat considered the bellwether seat. She was up against Floyd Green, the incumbent, who was victorious. Hi, Dr. Miranda. Pleasure to have you on the Trailblazers platform. I know it's your first time here, and we have a little bit to discuss today. How are you feeling after Wednesday's general election? I'm probably that's not a question to really ask, but I still have to ask nonetheless.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for having me on Trailblazers. It is indeed a pleasure saying hello to all your viewers, all your listeners. I'm here, I'm home. I'm in Southwest St. Elizabeth. I told them I ain't going nowhere. So after the loss, unfortunately, for the PNP in Southwest on Wednesday, it's been a very low-key environment for my supporters. Many of them, I wake up in the morning, they're on my veranda, they're in my kitchen. they're taking the loss really bad. And, I still have to be a leader, still have to be here for them, encouraging them, letting them know that, that won't change the dynamic of me being of service, me being around them to support them. It's just that we wanted the opportunity to see what a woman leadership would be like for this constituency. And the people have chosen. Unfortunately, it wasn't me, but I respect their decision. And I congratulate my opponent, Floyd Green. He is the incumbent and they have elected him to remain as their MP. But that doesn't change that I will always be here to serve my party and my constituency in whatever capacity, whatever support that I can give, I will continue to do so. As I first said, I'm a daughter of the soil. That won't change. Service is in my blood. And that will continue to be my mantra.
Indeed, indeed. And as you rightly mentioned, obviously there would be many broken hearts in your constituency because you did indeed put up a big fight. As a matter of fact, your seat in Southwest St. Elizabeth was one that was being highly watched before the elections because the word on the ground was that you were indeed putting up a very strong fight for Floyd Green, the incumbent. And just looking at the results, he polled 9,705 and you polled 8,462 on the night. That was the preliminary results there. I'm not sure if recounting is going on or if it's finished. What's happening there?
There are 2 days in. To this day, Saturday would be the third day. I think it will take about 4 days. As you can see, it's a very large constituency, 34,000 voters. Very, very disappointing turnout. I would have anticipated a higher voter turnout on either side, but we see where there were significant challenges all around the constituency. And so, even though we know the results, what we're saying is that we initially thought that right across the island that there would have been a higher voter turnout in many of the constituencies.
What was the voter turnout like there? Because generally your constituency, and in fact, one of the reasons your seat was also being highly watched because it's considered the bellwether seat. Since in the 1950s, anywhere that seat votes is generally what, in terms of the results for the country or the party that wins. So what would you say are among the challenges that you just mentioned?
Well, to my knowledge, culture doesn't change easily. And if we are known as the bellwether seat, which they have proven again, we do stick with the government. it tells us that the voter turnout should have been higher. And in my opinion, there were significant challenges right across the constituencies and the polling stations. And I think right across Jamaica, we see it as an anomaly for such an engaging kind of campaign. We see where so many people have become interested in politics again, despite the middle class who seem to, obviously, they are very intelligent voters. They vote on issues. But the base of both political parties were significantly energized and engaged. And so it seemed very odd that our voter turnout was not as high as anticipated. To be fair, I have not been informed of the percentage of turnout, but it seemed to be, it should have been the highest, because if it spells well that they are the constituency, they are the constituents that go with the government, it should spell well that they have to be the highest voter turnout, which could be primarily due to voter suppression. That's a political tactic that I'm just learning about. And it also spells well that there has been challenges at the polling stations. Many of the polling stations we saw where there were long lines, but that should have affected both of us, which is true. The long lines significantly hampered those who, did it as a favor and don't feel that 4 hours is worth standing to cast their ballot. And we have to now look at how to make the voting process easier, not hampering. It's not difficult to vote, because once you get in the polling station, it's simply to mark your X. But the process getting there and instructions given were long, tedious. I mean, I don't know. I am maybe not a fan with what can be done to improve the process. But what we're saying is that the lines were just too long. Too many people spent too much time just casting an X, and it felt like a burden for some to simply give a chance to someone. Why should that be after you fought so hard for adult suffrage, universal adult suffrage? Now it's becoming a hamper to vote. Not a hamper in the sense that you cannot vote, but the process takes so long, lengthy. Lines, people stood there for hours upon hours. We had to send for chairs for the elderly. It has become tedious. How do you maneuver around that?
Your complaint in terms of the long lines and the long wait, that was something that was, right across the media in terms of what was happening on the day. A lot of complaints about that. So do you think the EOJ failed Jamaicans on election day? Because even just this week, there was a report from CAFE, the Citizens Action for Free and Fair Elections, that said people that were in line to vote on election day did not get to vote. As at the close of polls, the EOJ did not allow them to vote, which is a breach, actually.
Well, I know the EOJ may not get significant funding in terms of preparation for location polling, the location of the polling stations, because as you know, it's very expensive to run an election. So with the payment of workers, inclusive of the printing of materials for election. But what is also true to note is that many of these polling stations are not equipped to handle the kind of crowd that we are seeing happening at the polling stations. The polling stations were moved primarily to government institutions, whether clinics, schools, but many of these schools don't even have a pazer or a shaded area where people can stand up. One particular polling station in my constituency, the one in Pedro Plains at the basic school, the people stood in the line for hours without shade. Wow. Now, you would really have to love your party or love your candidate to stand in those lines. We started handing out umbrellas. We said, let's get a tent. But at that point in time, it's so hard to logistically find these resources when you're focusing on trying to get out voters. And what that also tells me and tells me is that there is no the kind of humanitarian need that needs to be instilled into those polling stations. We've still not escalated the voting process to being democratic. Because if a person cannot, it's not just free and fair. No, it's humanitarian conditions, humane conditions. If a man has to stand in line and risk his health to vote, it no longer becomes about free and fair. It becomes about humane.
Yes.
Some people started fainting. We had to be handing out water in the line. Now, if your party doesn't have that kind of resource, it shouldn't take a man to faint to give you an X. And so I'm not blaming the EOJ. I'm just saying that greater insight needs to be employed in how the process goes about. And also, I have seen more candidates complaining about the protection of boxes. Now, what we're saying is that there needs to be consideration for recorded video cameras in polling stations if we need to protect our boxes to that degree. What is significant is that we have to look at ways to improve the process. We are too far in the society advancements for the process to be hindering and cumbersome.
So when you speak of the protection of boxes, are you saying that without, for example, as you mentioned, not having video evidence, there could be tampering taking place within?
No. Well, I have no such evidence, but I'm saying that's also a deterrent for persons who think that anything can be done in there. Because what we are saying is that all these lengthy processes are to hinder any form of
Engagement.
hindrance, yes, for free and fair. So why not introduce the process of video cammering? So even if a process is videoed, then maybe you don't have to have so much processes to verify an elector. You know?
Yeah.
So we're just thinking that these are ways to improve the process, because I'm not thinking about what has gone or what has gone wrong. We now need to look at what can be done to improve, because I've been to polling stations in first world countries and there are cameras everywhere. But also we are dealing with polling stations that don't have electricity and don't have running water for our workers. So now you have to now look at improving the voting environment.
True.
Not just the process, but the environment is making it inhumane for our voters to cast their X, which should be a Democrat. It still varies outside of democratic if a man is risking his health now to give you an X.
And you made quite a point earlier. I didn't touch on it right after you mentioned it because the conversation went along. But you mentioned that there may have been voter suppression at play. Now, for those who may not understand what that means, can you delve a bit into that?
Well, for a constituency that is known to be the highest voter turnout in the island, one of the highest, we saw where many of my PDs, I did not understand. To this moment, I am still dumbfounded as to why there is less than 50% turnout in my strong PNP zones. So I know that many people may not be aware of the kind of political hindrances that exist. And I'm not being a sore loser, because if you lost, you lost. But if there's significant red flags coming up through, consultation, through revision, through recourse, we now have to look at how do we prevent against this. and you first need to identify what are the challenges. I saw where many of my polling stations, which normally give me over 100 and odd votes, barely getting to 100. And so now you have to look at a different kind of anomaly within the political process. I personally feel I did not have a fair chance at winning because obviously I was up against a person who has significant government resource and is a two-term member of parliament. So he would have cemented himself significantly in the constituency. But with all things being equal, I felt I would have had a great chance. But when you look at many of the resource challenges happening in the constituency on that day, you now recognize that you were placed, in a very difficult position to win. When many of your zones you saw where your voter turnout is not what it used to be. What could cause this? And it exists. Voter suppression is it is not the same as voter buying because people are aware of voter buying. Many political parties have been accused of buying votes. But when you think about voter suppression, that's a whole different kettle of ball. It exists, but it was significantly um, identified in my strong PNP zones. And those zones you saw where people already had ink on their fingers
And they
and
didn't
did
vote.
not and did not vote.
Woo.
And this won't be new to any Jamaican. It's just that it's more blatant. It's more blatant now. Fingers dipped. The process is that when you go into the polling station, the lamp is used over your 10 fingers to identify whether or not you have voted already. No, the challenge with that is that it prevents you from voting again. But the name has not voted, but the fingers have been dipped. So you
Wow.
still can't vote.
And it's not
You still
everyone
can't vote.
use the lamp because I don't recall seeing any lamp where I voted.
Well, some polling stations had lamps. Where I was, where my polling station was, the lamp was used. Um, it's been used in quite a lot of constituencies. Maybe they didn't have enough lamps. I don't know if every polling station was given a lamp, but I know that most of the ones in Southwest had lamps. So
Oh.
once you have that ink, that purple ink on your finger, like I still do now,
Mhm.
it highlights it.
Mhm.
Just like you have blood stains and you have that verification lamp. So that lamp now gets to tell you whether or not you would have voted. So it prevents repeat votership.
Yes.
But in this case, they have not voted, but the fingers are purple.
Wow.
So,
That.
so I'm not saying that it is large scale, but it also is a form of voter suppression.
Mhm.
It is also a form of voter hindrance because many of the rural constituencies don't know that if you dip your finger in the ink, it means you can't vote. They just say, okay, then that means that whatever they have taken,
Mhm.
they still think that they can vote for whoever they want. But just lack of knowledge because lack of knowledge now makes them feel that they still can go vote.
That's great.
And remember, we in a high intense environment where people are just pulling people. People be like, oh, you don't come a polling station yet. Come vote. So you grab them, you put them in the line. They maybe don't know that that will be a hindrance for them not to vote, that they've dipped.
Mhm.
Because in a for them head, that don't mean anything to them. And so greater knowledge needs to be executed by the EOJ about the the um the repercussions of dipping your finger in ink. And also there needs to be harsher penalties for those caught doing this. There has to be a form of institutionalized policy, well, greater than policy, but there has to be fines and term prison sentence for people who are hindering the democratic process. If you are caught with ink, have you ever heard anybody caught with it? No, because the police have not even been educated as to what ramifications are, what can be done in an election period if persons are caught with it. But it exists. Maybe people not talking about it, but it exists. It exists where a man pull up on the side of the road, pays a man to go and vote, dips his finger, but this process starts from the night before. And so when we say voter suppression, that's a pretty word for what everybody knows is happening. And so I'm very much aware that all these things happen in mine and maybe many other constituencies. But what we're saying is that there has to be harsher penalties, and there has to be an arm of the police force that is set up like a mobility, an arm, election arm force that deals with matters like these, like the night before, days before, that goes around and prevents people, not prevent them, give them the fear of doing things like this. So we're seeing where the vote on election day, when you have police assigned to polling station, I'm out of my depth when it came to operating on election day. What I experienced was far superior to what I was prepared for. I was prepared for voter intimidation, prepared for maybe polling station issues where people don't want to go to polling station because of intimidation or having too many people gathered. That is the usual political issues or challenges, and that is why police and soldiers are deployed to polling station. But what I experienced on election day was far more superior. It was like a different political animal and strategy employed by the opponents.
Wow. And of course, you being a first timer in politics, you would not necessarily be exposed to all of that before.
We went to the school, but we never went to that class.
Wow. But
I laugh about it. I laugh about it because when my party leader called to say what went wrong, I said, party leader, we went to political school, but we never got at the class.
wow. Wow.
Yes.
And then you
And
have people that said, I'll both sides do it. For us as neutral citizens looking on, we're like, no, we you want to feel that everything is being done fairly and properly.
well, this has nothing to do with EOJ. This has to do with the political culture that exists out there. It's just that who is employing it, may have I call it a shadow team that and that is a different tactician exercise, or it's a targeted effort on maybe some of the constituents that they feel must win for either parties. And so I feel that there are constituencies that are paid more attention, and you saw that during the election both of our political leaders were down in these constituencies, mine in particular, because we saw the significance of winning that constituency. But beyond that, some of us were not exposed to the kind of political dimensions that would take place in ensuring that these seats are won. I was just not prepared. And I concede, I was just not prepared for this kind of political ambush.
Wow, wow. Interesting there, Miranda. So, in terms of you, because as you mentioned, you're a daughter of the soil, you're from Southwest St. Elizabeth. I understand you've been teaching there for years, and everything. Everybody knows you down there. So, what's next for you? Do you continue as the PNP caretaker, or you're going to, step aside? What's your plans?
What I know for certain is that it's early days. What is important is that I know the people are depending on me to at least give them hope, still continue to support them, and I will continue to do so. Today is the third day. I'm a little stronger, so I'll be heading out on the road to look for my supporters, my constituents, to give them thanks, to show appreciation. We did extremely well. We saw where we amassed over 8,000 votes, and 8,000 odd people believed in me and believed in the PNP. And so that is what I will, that's the premise on which I will build going forward, that there are people who understand that we wanted to make significant change, and we had a platform that 8,000 odd people believed in. So we have to make them feel like their vote wasn't in vain. So I have to continue to support them. What I do not know going forward is what the future holds. I'm here to serve. I expressed to my party leader that I will always be a daughter of Southwest, and I'll always be a supporter of the People's National Party. I am grateful for the People's National Party to give me the opportunity to serve my constituents. They supported me and they gave me all the knowledge and the understanding of how to be a better leader, and I thank my party for that. I will be here. I ain't going nowhere. yesterday yesterday they buried me 3 times, but them couldn't. Yes, and that is political rhetoric, like, they drive around with the coffins,
Oh, they did that down here.
Jamaican,
They did.
Jamaican politics is colorful. So
Yeah.
they bury me. Yes, they bury me in Black River. They bury me at my hometown. But where I live now, the road was too bad, so they couldn't come around here to bury me. So I tell them, say, I won't give them any more chances. I have to come out and let them see that I am alive and well. Nothing has changed in terms of my conviction for wanting better for my people, representing my people. If the people want me, I am here to serve.
Indeed, indeed. And it's good to see that despite the loss, you still are smiling, you still have a bright countenance, and you still have that fiery energy about you. So as we wrap up, you just mentioned in terms of the fact that you're still available to serve, and whatever the outcome may be. What would you generally want to say, though, not only just to your constituents, but to the people of Jamaica? Because often we hear the stories of the winners, the ones who come out on top. And for me, one of the reasons I want to have this conversation with you is to also hear from those who were not as successful. What would you want to say to the people of Jamaica?
The people of Jamaica saw the work that we did in Southwest. They fell in love with the energy that we brought to the political fore. The people have always been grateful to lead, the political process in Jamaica, meaning that they follow whatever where the government goes, Southwest goes. So we know they're intelligent voters. But what is important for me to share with the Jamaican people is I was not politically ambitious. I fell in love with politics because of the community person I am. And my love for my people in Southwest and Jamaicans will never stop. I will continue to show the people that we can do things differently despite the challenges. And I tell everybody, sometimes you don't have to change the world. All you have to do is change your community. And so my community will have me changing them one by one. We're still going to do the work. We're still fixing up the community center, which I started. We finished the roof there. We're going to lobby now to get some windows for it. We're still fixing up the fence. We're still going to get back the neighborhood watch in place. And so what I say to Jamaicans, instead of complaining what politicians don't do or have not done, be the change you want to see. Start with one person and one community, and you can see the ripple effect. If everybody pull together, then the change will happen. Politics and politicians don't change Jamaica or their constituents. People do. And so I'm encouraging everyone, no matter how small, be the change you want to see. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Be the change you want to see in the world. One of my favorite quotes there from Mahatma Gandhi. Dr. Miranda Wellington, all the best in your future endeavors in your constituency, and thank you for sharing with us.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Best of thanks.